We are having a very special episode of Breaking Into today. We're talking self-care in the business. And we have a few other things we're going to talk about too, so stay tuned.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Breaking Into.
Why I'm wearing this shirt.
Oh, Michael.
8 years ago today, we lost a legend. We did.
9.
Nine?
Did you
No,
know?
not yet. 9 years ago. 9 years ago, we lost a legend.
Can you believe
nine.
it?
9 years ago, we lost a legend.
Yeah.
I can't believe it sometimes that he's just not here.
I know. I still feel like we should just be singing songs that
Right.
he sang and everything. Yeah.
This is interesting. Hi, welcome to Breaking Into. I am James Lott Jr., your host, and then we're talking about, again, Michael Jackson. That was Human Nature from his landmark album, Thriller, which I was talking to some friends the other day about what albums they like the most, and I'm kind of an off-the-wall fan of some of the story. I'm a little older. I like disco, so a little older. So I'm just going to go right into, I brought my guest back from last month. We're going to talk about this very important subject about self-care, working through this business, the ups and downs. I'm going to tell you actually a little story. We're going to talk about this, and I'm glad she's here with me, my girl, Miss Shay Holland.
Oh, thanks you for having me back.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
this is such an important time to be talking about the kinds of things that we get an opportunity to talk about.
Yes, definitely. So you go ahead and follow us on Facebook. The Breaking Into page is there. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, and we're also on YouTube. I'm blank for a second. We're on YouTube under Black Hollywood Live, under Breaking Into, and this episode will be there. And the one we did recently is on there too. So you can go there and find us there. Let me make sure all my stuff is off. That is off. Very good. I first am going to show this magazine. This is one of the latest People magazines. We had two very highly publicized suicide deaths recently. It was Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. And it's just really sad to see that people who are in positions where they're successful, you have no idea what's going on in their personal lives or how their professional lives are affecting them personal lives. And we're going to talk about all of that in this episode. You remember when you heard about both of these deaths, where were you when you heard about
You know,
these?
I will say with Anthony Bourdain, because so many people I lead Host in LA, which is the largest group in the country for on-camera personalities, and several people have worked with him, have known him.
Yes, they did.
And somebody had actually just posted about something that they had done with him. And just when you look at the work that he did and the body of work, it was shocking, you know. And right away I just thought, wow, this is going to hit people hard coming off of the death of Kate Spade, another obviously creative person who has influenced so many lives. And so this is such a timely topic and really important. And obviously today being the day of Michael Jackson's death, and even though it wasn't billed as a suicide, I think we all now know, you know, the issues he struggled with.
Yes, I mean, we know that right now his father is really sick too.
Right,
Joe's really sick, and there's a lot of issues that Michael talked about while he was alive, and things he didn't talk about too. He was a very private person about his upbringing, his childhood, about the way he looks. We all saw that.
Right.
Probably pain he was feeling from all the dancing. Prince was the same thing. From all those jumps, those splits, and everything you do. I mean, there's a lot of pain going on there. So Michael, it wasn't a suicide, but there was a lot of stuff behind him in his life.
Right, and that's definitely something I want to talk about, just because I feel like that side of the conversation, some of the things that can lead to it, that's not just maybe necessarily underlying mental health issues. Yes, those are there, but especially in Hollywood, I will tell you, I have never seen as many prescription drugs available to people. And I think what people don't realize is many of those, one of the side effects is depression and suicidal thoughts. And so
they say that in some of the ads. They say that.
Yeah, and I'm like, is the treatment worth it when you might encounter that? And so that's all part of, I think, this dynamic that we're seeing with more and more suicides and people maybe that we never thought would have a propensity towards that. You know, maybe they started out with some sort of painkiller. I was reading an article that said everything from birth control pills to acne medicines. One of the side effects can be depression, and that was just shocking to me. You know, so you add that on to this creative temperament that.
Yes. Well,
probably.
I'm going to share a quick story, that I actually when I heard about these two deaths, I actually made a statement, and I have no problem sharing this because there is no shame when you're going through something. And I don't know if you saw it or not. I posted, but people were talking about it. I too thought of suicide, and so when this came out, I wanted people to know, my colleagues, my fans, my friends, my followers, that. Me, Mr. Happy and positive and smiley and works very hard in my life. As many of you know, I had several deaths in my life recently that hit me very hard. So I thought of suicide as an answer. And so I decided to get help. And there's no shame in getting help. And there's no blaming or anything. It's something that I I ended up gaining 60 pounds in weight.
Wow.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Which I'm losing now. I lost 20, which I'm losing. But I decided, instead of ending my life, I decided to go get help. I also have a spiritual advisor I see twice a week. I have a therapist I see once a week. I just saw her last Friday. And I just want people to know that I'm here for you also. If you need somebody to talk to, I'm glad I reached out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's partly why I wanted to come back on the show too, especially, leading a group of creative people. We've got 3,000 in that group alone. And I was just looking at some research, and it was talking about how as creative people, I think it said something, we're 10 times more likely to wrestle with depression. And so I feel like, especially in the groups that we know and the people that we can impact, it's something that we need to talk about continuously, and not just let it, just because a celebrity has died, just let that be the only conversation. And that we really do need to start watching out for each other. And what you've gone through, I guarantee you, many of us have had a similar story at some point, if we've been in this business for any length of time. And it doesn't stop just because you've made it to a place where you're successful with what we see with all the celebrities that have committed suicide. And that was kind of what I found. I didn't, I wasn't at that level, but I had reached all of my dreams at a certain point. And I thought that, I should be so happy. I should be I was living a charmed life. I had, the job I always wanted. I was, had famous men wanting to date me. I had the money I needed. And all I could think was, why am I so empty? And for me, the answer was definitely faith that got me out of, a dark hole and a dark season of my life. And in fact, it was that moment, like I hadn't been to church since I was a kid. I hate to admit it.
Wow.
Sorry for all you Southern Baptist people. I did for a long part of my life, I was not a religious person. I wasn't really seeking that. And so, but finally, when I was just like at my lowest, I was like, well, I don't want to commit suicide, but I don't want to be alive anymore either. And I thought, I'm just going to walk into a church because I was convinced God was just going to... like that was it, because I had no delusions that I was a good person. That's the things, like you always hear people say, well, I'm going to get to heaven because I'm a good person. I didn't have any delusions that I was a good person. I did not try to be a good person. I was a crime reporter. We are not good people, okay?
Ugh,
you will get killed if you're a good, nice person when you're out there dealing with murderers and everything. But the lightning didn't strike when I walked into that church. And I remember it was Mother's Day, and it was the first time, like I just started to literally feel like a sense of peace. And I was like, this is not what I expected.
I want to ask you, I'll piggyback off of that for you. Being a reporter, because there's different types of hosting, there's different kinds of hosting. What I do, what you do, what you did and did for many years, reporting, news reporting. I couldn't imagine doing that. Night after night, day after day, seeing what you've seen, hearing what you hear. How did you navigate through that? I mean, talk to people out there who are doing it now.
Right.
How did you?
Well, that's where I think self-care comes in, and I was lousy at self-care. I had drinking does not count as self-care.
No,
people.
Sure doesn't. I tried that too.
Let me just tell you that. But when you get off work at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing else open. And so for me, there was a season of life where I did not do it well, and I've had to learn, and I'm actually still learning how to really take care of myself in the midst of that, and still trying to keep a foot in the door with reporting. I've been back and forth, for example, to Haiti a couple times. I was there right after the earthquake reporting, and it this time there was something in me that shifted. I think because I've become into a more hopeful place in my own life, and I've really embraced my faith, and I've really said, okay, God, here I am, and allowed peace and joy to find me and to flow through me. It's very different now for me. And it doesn't mean I don't grieve over some of the things that I'm seeing. And I think that's it, is allowing ourselves to be able to go through the emotions of what we experience as creative people. We tend to feel things more differently. We have a propensity to it. It's just not letting it become part of everything that's within you. And that's different for different people. Some people it might be, running. Some people it might be meditation. Some people, it's going to be a combination of things. We have to find it for ourselves, and we have to help each other find.
What did you feel about when Rachel Maddow broke down? On camera. I mean, I've done it a couple times. I try not to, but I did it a couple times too. It does happen, but it really affected her telling the story. She couldn't finish.
And I remember the first time I really saw somebody break down on camera. It was Rosie, and it was over the shooting in Colorado. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And I literally had no idea how to respond myself because I was still so detached from my emotions. And unfortunately, in the business, in this industry, it's still not necessarily all right, depending on the show. I mean, if you're on Oprah and you're her guest, she wants that.
Yes.
But
yes, right.
Sorry, Oprah.
Yeah, she does. My show too. I cry, cry. Yes.
And as a reporter, I was known for being able to make people cry within just a few questions because I was like, just let's get right to it, And but yeah, it's. I think we've improved in terms of letting people find a place to get healthy and trying to come around each other as a community. And I hope that, what we're seeing right now and the remembrance of Michael Jackson and everything, we won't just be quiet and be silent. And that was the thing with Michael Jackson. I remember I was in my office at work not too far from where they were going to be taking his body. And I remember looking out the window, and I don't know if you recall, but it was a gap between the time that they found him overdosed and the time that 911 was called in Michael Jackson's death. And I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was enough that there was a question, had somebody called right away, would he be alive? And I remember standing in my office going, if I'm ever in that position, I'm going to make the phone call.
Right.
Knowing, though, that the person that makes that phone call usually is like in a boatload of trouble.
Yeah, right.
But I thought, and the weird thing, and then about 7 years later, I was literally in that position with a celebrity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
what celebrity you say? No?
I can't say, but what I can say is it was weird how life played out because there I was, I never met Michael Jackson. I never expected to be in that position, but I just thought, we'll never know if he would be alive. And we knew he struggled with certain issues related to mental health, but and so that those few minutes, how precious, who knows what could have happened. And then when I was in that position, I walked into the room, found the person unconscious. And what I realize now is why people don't make the call is generally the people around them have been through it many times where they've seen them and the person snaps out of it. They slap them or they give them something and the person comes to. So you're thinking this is going to be like all the other times. They're going to come out of it. Well, there's going to be that one time that they don't come out of it. Yes. And so I made the decision to make that call, and it did cost me the position I had at the time, to be honest. Yep, within 5 minutes.
Well, sometimes you gotta be human sometimes.
Yeah, and I thought at least you're not dying on my watch.
Right, exactly.
But it was the series, and I also had said, I'm going to be very bold with the people around me and say, are you struggling? Are you thinking of committing suicide? And what are your thoughts on where, what are you taking? What kind of drugs are you taking? And I had to say to one of my bosses too, and I said, I don't do bail, because she was taking so many drugs. Right. And I'm like, and I would sneak into her office and get the names off of the pill bottles. Right. Because I'm like, this is too many drugs, and I don't know if she ODs. I have no idea what she's taking.
I had to get off of Xanax. I was taking Xanax and a few other things after some of the deaths that happened, especially when my dog of 15 years died suddenly, and then my grandmother died the next day suddenly. So I was extremely close to both of them, and it was like my heart, I couldn't even perform. Right. But I found I did get a little hooked, and I was like, I had to stop.
Wow.
I had to get off it because it was like because they were just evening me out, which is only a Band-Aid to the problem. But they're just like, here, James, here's some drugs, just taking them. And I was just taking them, and I'm like, okay, it's 3 months later, and I'm still taking them. Yeah. I don't really need to have, it's like, I had to get off. So that thing it's very easy. Everybody, it's very easy. I got hooked on NyQuil years ago. I'm telling you, it's very easy to do that.
It is, and especially, I've lived in everywhere from New York to Chicago, Portland, San Francisco, and LA. I mean, major cities. Yes. I had never, I have to admit, seen as many drugs as I've seen in LA.
Oh, okay.
Of all the cities, and part of that I think is because it's a creative industry and people are taking so much. And I would say to one person, I'm like, well, why are you taking this? And she said, well, that keeps me up in the day. Well, why are you taking that? Well, that puts me down to sleep at night. Well, why are you taking that? Well, that's for my anxiety. And it's one thing, and well, that's for my back pain. It's one thing after another after another. And I don't want to slam the medical industry necessarily, but a lot of times they're not monitoring.
It's a business.
Right, it is a business, people. It is a business.
I'll say it. I'll be shady today. I'll say it. It's a business.
I, at one point, had actually gotten the names of doctors who were supplying drugs illegally, prescription drugs, knowing, but there's money to be made in that. And I actually took it to a publisher and said, hey, here's a story. I've got the suppliers. We can put these people out of business and maybe save some lives. And do you know what he said to me? He said, we can't do that kind of story because we'll lose too many advertisers.
We would.
Because the pharmaceuticals don't want to advertise around it. And I'm like, we don't save lives because we're going to lose money.
The green is first,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
I do want to do a special shout out to Farrah Fawcett, who also died today too.
Yeah, that's right.
What's funny for me is that it got overshadowed because Michael obviously was a bigger star, but I was a huge Farrah Fawcett fan back in the 70s. Loved Charlie's Angels.
I think we all did, yeah.
Right, and her hair. I had that same hair in the 70s.
Did you really?
I did. I had a long front
No
of
way.
hair. There's some
We gotta
pictures-
find a
there's
picture
some
of
out
that.
there.
We
There's
definitely
some out
gotta
there.
find a picture
I had
of that.
blonde hair at one point too. This is out there. They're out there. Some of you have seen them. But anyway, but I remember I was out of town. I was in New York. Found out she died that morning. Got on a plane. I was flying back home cross country. Got off the plane and Michael had died.
Wow.
So so those two deaths to me are very connected. She had anal cancer, the whole separate thing for her, but she had mental stuff too that went on with her too. For the creative, and then Ryan O'Neal and all that stuff that went on with them, and abuse, and he had mental and drug and alcohol problems. It's funny because you're right. I love that you keep saying, because I love languages, you know that, the temperament of creative people. That is what we're talking about. We think a little differently than businessmen and stuff, correct?
Right. And I found something this week that just said, let's see if I can find it, from Scientific American. And it says, artists and creative people, writers, especially if you're a writer out there, are 20 times more likely to suffer from bipolar disorder. And creative people are 10 times more likely to suffer from depression than the average person. And there's still studies that have to be done to see what is the correlation between that. But as artists, it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me that we have, just such a propensity.
But it makes sense to me. As you read those statistics, I start thinking as a layperson watching the tortured artist. The best art comes when a comedian is sad in real life, or some of the best music comes out because they're pulling all their tragedy into. And I'm also a recording artist. I'm also a writer and a poet, and some of my frustration I have poured into my work, which is a blessing. But then the curse of that is I'm living it.
Yeah.
At the same time.
And I was talking with some people, like, how do we, stay in tune with the parts that make us creative and not allow it to, become a monster within us, And one of the quotes I was reading, it said this great thing about how we have both the poison of, creativity that leads to possibly depression, but we also have the antidote within us, which is creativity helps people get out of depression. And sometimes, you hear a great song, see a great piece of art, and it begins a journey to wholeness and healing. And so we have both of those within us. And so I've tried to learn how to use that ability to feel deeply in terms of my creativity. Again, it goes back to self-care too. How do I allow myself to go into maybe some dark places, especially with some of my acting? And I have to thank my coach, Diane Venora, who is a great actor from, she got famous for Heat. And and I've been able to work with her, and she really teaches artists how to use the whole body, including the emotions, but not letting that become somehow that you get lost in it. And I can't explain it to you because it's definitely a one of those tightrope things.
Yes.
And one of my friends put it best. She said it's like dancing on the edge of a knife.
I believe that. Well, as I'm a certified life coach, and in my practice, we always talk about everything's mindset. And we're talking about the mind right now, so we're talking about everything's in the mind. So we're talking about that. And one of the first things we have to do as people is try to get to our center. Now, to get there takes some work, to actually get to our core, get to our center. And one of the things that I always suggest to people, we always say invite people to do this, is to first really look at yourself. It's a hard thing to do, to really look at.
And what are we looking for?
You're trying to look at yourself very clearly and honestly, without blame, without shame. For example, this is a magazine. You look at it, you're like, it's a magazine. It's a magazine about entertainment. Okay, some people like it, some people don't. You want to find a way to look at yourself the same way. I see myself, for example, I'm James Lott Jr. I'm fat. I got fat. Doesn't matter how I got there, but I am. But you know what? I look pretty good, though. Otherwise, I'm still preserved, and there are times when I feel sad, and there are times when I feel happy. I wish I had a partner in my life. And I really look honestly with yourself. You have to get there. It's not easy to do that, to put a mirror to yourself and go, I'm this. But that's how you first start getting to your center, is when you look at yourself as plainly as this is a cup. You got to think of it in terms like that. This is an iPad. You got to do yourself almost simple, it's just plainly as that. Got to take the judgment out.
Yeah, I was gonna say no judgment is
Take
what
the
it sounds like,
judgment out.
and the shame and all the other feelings
Right.
that go along with
Right.
guilt. And I had a lot of guilt for sure because part of my job was making sure people went to prison, and afterward I was like,
know.
I'm not really sure I did the right thing in some cases.
Right.
So there was a lot of guilt for certain things, and it was like that no judgment
Yes.
Kind of a thing.
You
was
have to
very,
you have
very
to learn to
different.
forgive
Learning
with
to
yourself.
forgive, yes, that was it. Like for me, it was easy to forgive others.
Right.
It wasn't so easy maybe to forgive myself. And I think especially as creatives, some of us who add creativity and perfectionism. Oh my gosh! It's like
Yes.
you've got just this poison almost potion before you when you throw in the perfectionism. With
I had a
that.
guest on here. I've done 170 whatever shows of the show. They told me they thought they were supposed to be tortured to be creative. They saw that in TV and movies,
Right.
so they thought, well, I got to live a tortured life to be tortured. And they found out all they're doing was torturing themselves.
Right.
That the
Yeah.
creativity's there, but why am I putting this on me, putting labels on you?
Yeah. It's definitely a myth. It doesn't need to be true. I understand, like what you were saying, is sometimes we can channel that, the parts of us that are tortured into something that is maybe very creative. And like for me, a lot of times, I think a lot of people deal with anxiety, for example. And for some reason, I've found that's something that definitely I have to wrestle with is, oh my gosh, what about this? Back to that perfectionism. As a perfectionist, you're like, I didn't do that. I didn't get that done. That's not going to happen. And next thing you know, you've worked yourself into some sort of a panic attack. And so for me, I've learned that's sometimes the time I should just get up and work because I've got like kind of all this, energy flowing through me. And it's like, oh, okay, I can create that, and I can do that on the way. I can do that. I can make that. I can make that. And so I think it's learning how to use it versus having it attack us.
And there's no such thing as perfection.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that 20 times,
Yeah,
you guys.
yeah.
There's no such thing as perfect or perfection.
Are you sure?
I am completely positive, Shay. I am completely positive. There isn't. There isn't. There isn't because then it means you'll never reach it.
Right.
You'll always
It's
be
the
searching.
unattainable.
It's unattainable.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. This show isn't perfect. Nothing's perfect. Things are good. Things are great. Things are wonderful. But things aren't perfect.
Yeah, and it's learning to accept that too. I think will take a lot of that pressure off of us.
Yes.
But it is not an easy thing
No,
for some reason,
not
and
at
I don't know why, but I know every day I get up and I want things to look perfect. I want them to be
Yes.
perfect, and they're just not.
Well, I learned, that, especially in therapy, I stopped looking for happiness. I started looking for freedom. Freedom, I do tell all my clients, freedom leads to joy, which can give you and bring you happiness.
Right.
Joy is an inward thing. It's very much, if you have inner joy, inner peace, that's what's going to bring you freedom to be fully who you are. And I've learned it because happiness is just one of the many emotions we have at any given day. Angry, sad,
Right.
cry, crying, whatever. That's all emotion. But for me, a state of mind is freedom.
Yeah.
I invite people to think about that for a second. Just like as a host, as a person who's in this business, who's trying to make it, you gotta allow yourself some freedom to know that you're gonna hear a lot of no's.
Yes, you will hear a lot of
You're gonna hear
no's.
some yeses. There are small things. This is the thing. Begin thinking of your perfection thing, and you probably know this. You probably heard people do this. They have a victory. Something comes through and it's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, but.
There's that word. When we get to that question, that's going to be the word we shouldn't use.
Exactly. I mean, so seriously, it's like, why are we doing that to ourselves?
Right.
Why are we budding ourselves? Like, no, you got this gig. It's a small one, but it's good. It's going to lead you somewhere. Any movement is good. It's movement. It's good. So stop doing that because you're thinking, well, I didn't get this.
Right. And I think another thing is being able to maybe get comfortable with expressing to the people around you what's going on in our heads and so it doesn't come out in this outburst. And like last night, it was a small thing, but to me it was a big thing. And I was trying to get a new phone hooked up and they messed it up at the store.
Yes.
Well, it wiped out all my ability to access data. I had no ability to access data, which in our business is critical. If an audition comes through, it's coming through on my data plan, and I've got, and I needed directions to get here. So it was not necessarily a small thing, but it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't, a death of a loved one. It was more a major inconvenience because they're like, okay, well, we'll get to it on the 28th. And I'm like,
No, 28.
And then the 8th, I shouldn't say the name of the company, but
Say it. Let's be shady. Let's just say it.
the phone rep starts trying to sell me on better plans. He's like, well, I just want you, and including a TV plan. And I'm sitting there running along the sidewalk trying to get back so I can get, some sleep before, coming here and everything else today. And I just stopped on the sidewalk and I said, please, do not try to sell me anything or you're going to make me very upset. Because I could just feel my anxiety level rising. I had a self-tape audition that I was trying to do. And, so it was all this bad. It's also the things that are battling for our creativity too. And that's how, and he just right away, he was like, oh, well, I didn't mean to upset you.
I love it. No, that's the thing. It's like we have to get back to ourselves and really have talks with ourselves. Like you said, again, being non-judgmental, but just having to talk to yourself and say, okay, right now I'm boiling over. You recognize that. I am boiling over. I got to let this person know, please do not do that anymore because it'll get really bad. Yeah. And that's good. And my therapist actually just told me that recently to say how I feel more to people.
Yeah, and it's foreign for some of us, especially, for me, not necessarily being wired that way. And I think learning to understand not everything has to have the same weight. Like for example, I got here and I had just bought a new shirt yesterday because I'm like, I'm going to look all styling, and we got this, event afterward. I put it on and I got here and I realized it's ripped. It's my brand new shirt. And so fortunately, I had this one in my bag.
You're from LA,
but
so
I'm like, okay, carry another shirt. Right. You don't necessarily want to wear white for an audition, but this is what they're going to get. And so I just thought, that on the scale of things, probably would have upset me greatly in the past. But now I'm like, what? That doesn't really need much of my attention. And so I've learned to understand what I need to give weight to and what I don't need to give weight to.
That's so
and
smart.
And that's been really helpful too.
Yes. And, I always call it, sometimes we fall into the pain Olympics, where this is like really bad, this is badder, I'm going to make some bad English, and this is good, this is gooder, and I'm being funny, of course, but like there's all these things where things are relative to the time, and I love what you just said. You figure out what's really important in that moment. Like, what's really important? I mean, is that shirt really the most important thing? Or show up for a good interview and you're still going to look nice? Or still do that self-audition and just do the best audition you can? Yes.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're wearing, because it's what you have.
Right.
You don't wear a ripped shirt. I mean, that's not going to make you. They're going to focus on the ripped shirt.
Right. Exactly. Because it was like you could. I'm like, oh, why did I notice that?
They'll be like, why is she wearing a ripped shirt?
Yeah. And I think it's also putting it in perspective, like you were saying too. And I should be celebrating. I don't have a lot of clothes because I lost so much weight because I had gained it from that stressful job. Yeah. And then about 4 years ago, I said, I'm going to really concentrate on getting healthy. And physically, because I feel like our physical health is obviously clearly tied to our mental health. And, for me, I knew I was in trouble in all counts when I lived on the 5th story of a building at the time. And so with the garage parking, I was going to have to walk up 7 flights of stairs because the elevator went out. And okay, I'm going to just tell myself.
You start crying.
Well, no, I went to the Starbucks across the street.
Okay. Like next.
Because I'm like, I can't do 7 flights of stairs, okay?
Right.
And that's when I'm like, this is not good.
Right.
This is not at all a healthy place. And clearly when I'm having to just choose to go to the Starbucks because I only had to go up to the lobby versus go up to my apartment, I had to do something. And so, but it took a while. Like I said, I'm going to give myself so much time. This was where I was able to not be a perfectionist because I had tried everything and failed before. And so I said, I'm just going to, it might take a couple years. I'm going to do it the slow road, but I'm going to make sure whatever changes I make, this was healthy for me. I don't know if it will be for others. I'm going to make sure there are changes I can do for the rest of my life. Like I did not want to do just another diet. I didn't want to do where I just restrict stuff for 6 months and the weight comes off because it's just going to come back on. And I knew that and that had nothing to do with my creativity. It's just, I've been through that enough to know.
Me too.
And so I don't restrict myself from anything now. If I want cake, I eat the cake. And then I just learned how to, manage that with, everything else so that I'm not, 250 pounds at 5'2".
Yes, right. No, exactly.
Right.
Well, I want to ask you, that's a good segue. I want to ask you, especially, this is for both of us because this happens to men now too. The advent of the Instagram. A lot of people are on the IG, and there are times when I'm like, does anybody work? Are they on vacation?
Right.
I mean, like, I know that people are putting their best lives on there, So what are some of your just tips on people who are trying to make it in this business, especially when we're talking about like to host, and you see people who are skinny and maybe you're not as skinny, or they're really blonde, you're not as blonde, or they have a ripped body, you have a one pack, not a six. I mean, what are some of your kind of just tips on navigating that?
You know, it's a very real pressure because so much of our world is social media and image, even more so than it has ever been at any point in time. And I know that we each have to find maybe what's healthy for us. For me, for example, anyone who tries to find me on Instagram is going to realize, wow, she's not posting a bunch of selfies, just because I had to make a choice to wean myself off of a lot of social media. I spend most of my time on social media in our group, the hosts in LA, with people I'm going to actually meet and get to know, and maybe that I can help and who can help me as far as career goes. And that's what I decided to pour my energy into, because I felt for me, I will admit, I realized I was getting addicted to social media in a way that was not healthy, and I was comparing, my life to other people's lives. But I'll tell you, it wasn't hard for me to realize I have a problem. I was actually in Haiti, like I said, after the earthquake in 2010, I think was when the big earthquake hit, and got on a plane handling communications for a medical team and went to Haiti, not sure when we were ever going to be able to come back or anything like that. Massive destruction. I was writing articles for a news magazine, but during the times, most of the time, we weren't able to get on the internet. Wow. And I was literally in my tent having panic attacks. Because I couldn't get on the internet. Oh my God! Give me Facebook! Like literally, it was like this. I could feel this blood, like an addict would be. Like, give me my drug, And I finally found a way to sneak off and get it. I mean, literally, it was like an addict. Okay. Stop laughing, because there's a lot of people out there who would do the same way. I guarantee you. You take their internet away for an indefinite amount of time. They're not going to be able to breathe.
Right.
And
no, because I went through it when I went to Yosemite, not even that far away. Then all of a sudden, the thing when I couldn't get any messages or anything, and I was gone for a weekend, and I remember coming out of it, and I kind of got used to it a little bit after the weekend. At first, I was jonesing for it.
Isn't it nice?
It's kind of nice. No one's bothering me.
Yeah.
I got anxiety actually when the messages started populating.
Right.
Like, ding, ding, ding,
right.
As we got closer to civilization, it's got more. I was like, I don't want to look at my phone right now. Like, let's look at that later. Like, I got anxiety actually. I was like, I probably have 10,000 messages.
Yeah, and so it's so the weirdest thing. And then last night, I'm cut off, and I'm having anxiety because I'm cut off from data. So I don't, I'm still working on that one myself. But I will say for sure that if looking at certain people's, what I've tried to understand about myself is whose feeds do I look at where I'm not feeling good. And I hate to say it, I have to just unfollow them. And it may be because they're posting all this political stuff. And that's just not what I want to wake up to in the morning. I don't care what you think about Trump or whatever at, 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I've just learned that that's mostly what those people, though, that's what they're concerned about. And it just means I can go ahead and mute that then. And so I'm learning, there's other people who are like, I don't know why the thing with the duck lips, when is that going to die, James?
Yes, I don't know.
When?
I don't know. Stop saying
I do
lips.
not want to see duck lips at 7 in the morning.
Yes, I know. Well, that's good. I'm glad you said that's good. And you can actually, again, you're in control, folks.
Right. That's it, right there.
You just said, because you just set it up for me. You're in control. If you don't want to see certain things that make you feel bad, you can actually, there's all kinds of things. You can mute, block, unfollow, whatever. And all social media platforms, there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
So you don't see it.
But the truth is that some of us are addicted to comparing ourselves.
I know.
And that's a whole nother thing, which leads to, you want to talk about something that leads to depression and suicidal thoughts, that's it right there, And I think what I try to tell people is, just look at, when those thoughts of comparison come, look at your hand. Just look at your hand. I got a manicure yesterday. So.
Okay, very nice. You're looking very good. I need one. Okay, that's fine.
Right. Thanks. Not one of us have the same fingerprint.
That's true.
In the entire world.
That's true.
Is that not 7 billion?
Yeah.
That tells us each of us is so unique. Each of us has something to bring to this world that our fingerprints are different. And that's why it's so stupid to compare. And I think for me, what really set me free from that, you were talking about freedom. I was going somewhere with a friend, beautiful, tall, blonde girl, your American looks and everything like that, about 5'10". I don't know why I seem to pick up tall friends. I do.
Yes.
And I just remember being so envious because I knew, everybody's going to be looking at her and she's not going to buy a drink for the rest of the night because every guy is going to be sending her over a drink and I'll be overlooked. And I just, literally, I don't know. I mean, Joy Behar says people who think God talks to them are crazy, but I don't care because I really felt like God said to me in that moment, I'm never going to give you long legs.
Okay. So get over it.
Right. And it was like this, I literally was like, I stopped and I went, I am ridiculous. I'm envious over something I will never.
You can't get them.
Ever have.
Right.
And it was just like this light bulb moment went on though, where I'm just like, I can spend all my life, the rest of my life, being so envious over her big boobs and her long legs. Am I allowed to say boobs?
Yeah, boobs. Yeah, that's fine. Yes. Yeah.
Or I can rejoice in who I am.
Right.
But it was one of those moments where a light literally went on.
That was me too. I had a thing where you look at people and you go, wow, they made, and people always ask me why you're always so supportive to your friends in the business. Like I do. Like says when they win, I win. I feel like everybody, because it's hard in this business to get any kind of victories. I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
If you get something, everybody goes, I'm all happy. But I had to learn just to focus on me. I can look at their successes now and go, that's great.
Right.
That's their path. That's good for them. Then I'm on my own path. And maybe for me, and some people for God, some people say God. Well, God is going to give me my path. He's showing me where I need to go. So I can't worry about what so-and-so's doing over here. Even though, we're the same age and the same color, both black, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like, good. He got something great.
Yeah.
That means opportunities are still out there for me too.
Yeah, and I just tell people my time, it hasn't come yet. It's going to come.
Right, no, it's gonna come.
I don't know what it's going to look like fully, because some of my friends are so successful. Like I was doing that event the last time I was up here, and I reached out to some of my friends, and I was looking at their titles because I forget, I've had most of my friends for a long time, and I forget, they're like the president of, this company. They're the general manager for a professional baseball team, and I'm sitting there going down the list, and I'm thinking, we're the same age and they own the world practically. And I am still struggling to pay the rent.
Right. Well, hello. I'm rolling pennies yesterday.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
Right.
Right.
And so in those moments though, it's like, you want to talk about leading to depression, those kinds of things really truly can. And, and I think it's that, how do we learn to become not just okay with where we're at this point in our lives, but celebrating where we're at this point.
And it's okay, it's okay to have that emotion when it happens. Acknowledge it and try to work out of it. Like, have the emotion. If you're like, I am kind of sad everybody's so successful, but then try to work out of it. Don't try to sit in it.
And how do you do that?
Well, one of the things you just said is like, look at yourself and go, okay, that's them. They got there however they got there. Do you want to do what they're doing? Chances are no. I don't want to be a president of a golf club or whatever. I don't want to do that. I want to be a host of my own TV show. Blah blah. And am I working on that? I am working on that. Okay. And did I just do? Yes, I did that. I worked the Emmys there. Okay, got it. Like I have to remind myself, and just remind themselves what you are doing. Also, if you're not doing the work to get where you want to go, acknowledge that too.
That's good. Yeah.
Say, okay, well, you know what? They got there. They worked really hard to get there. I really haven't really done much. I didn't write that screenplay that I was talking about this last 3 years. Or I didn't really go for that audition. I should have went. I canceled on that audition. Like, you got again, without judgment, just kind of, again, this is a magazine, this is a cup, let me just go, I didn't do it. So I see why they're where they are, because they work very hard. I haven't worked as hard.
And it's like little things that can make a difference. Like I thought, I definitely want, at this point want some more money in my life. And I thought, I know what to do.
Yes.
And there's little things I'm not doing. Like, for example, I Ubered here, so I can go have a fun time afterward. And I thought, why did I put that on a credit card where now I'm paying Uber and interest? Why did I put that on my debit card? Link it. And it's little things like that. And so I do feel like, it's kind of like losing weight. We know, like most of us know what we need to do to get to a certain point, but it's getting, making those first few steps. And I love this quote. I can't remember who says it. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yes, I like that one.
And it's like, okay, what is the small step I can take today? And then just building on that. And that's also, like for me, what I did with weight loss, I thought I'm not going to just try to change everything. I'm going to try and change one thing, the one thing at a time. And for me, like I was addicted to Diet Coke. Like drugs were not my thing. I don't know. I just knew that if I started taking any drugs, like that, there was no recovery. It wasn't happening. Right. And so I've actually never taken anything, not even prescription meds. I had those for one day, and I was like, no, that is not happening. And so, but Diet Coke, that was, whoa, baby, get up in the morning and start chugging them.
that is addicting.
It is, and I don't, and it's not healthy. And I thought, I'm going to start with the one thing, and can I get healthy in terms of getting off a Diet Coke? And it was not easy. That's why, that's why I'm like, I can't focus on other things right now, because getting off of this one thing is going to be brutal.
Yes, and people ask me all the time how I get things. I ask. I research. I ask. I set up meetings. I make phone calls. I send out emails. In this business, you can't always wait for people to come to you.
Yeah.
And so I do go to people. And sometimes I hear some no's, but at least I asked.
Right.
Like, those are all small steps that you were just talking about to getting something that you want. When you sit at home and just get depressed and don't say anything, well, nothing ever happens for me. Well, what are you doing to make things come into your orbit?
Yeah, and I think also if we can't make it happen for us, how can we help make it happen for somebody else? And that's what one of the things that, like the group that I run, I get asked a lot of times. You're helping other people get jobs, and some people I've helped get great jobs with BBC, other big, and they're like, you haven't gotten yourself a job.
But the thing is, you get them in positions, they remember you.
And I think also it was, it's that's what we're on this planet for. If we really go back to it, that it's a community.
Well, my saying on the show is we lift each other up, share knowledge, and pay it forward. That's been my motto from the very beginning. And those three things are what you do, what I do with people on my show. I showcase people who are newbies and they go on to other things. I'm happy for them. I'm glad I was a part of that.
Yeah.
Because again, later, one person I had on the show wrote me a part in his movie, like 2 years later.
Oh.
And I did a movie with Vivica Fox. I mean, I did little small parts. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, so you never know.
The thing is, when you help each other, you link each other up, and you help each other, you never know who's going to come back to you and say,
yes,
I heard this job, that'd be great for you. Or you'd be great for that hosting gig, or you'd be great for, you never know. You just never know.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just because, it's not even that we can help each other, but it's just there's a friendship maybe that can even come out of, what we're talking about too. And I that's why I get so excited sometimes with the way I've decided to do my social media. I'm not, like I said, maybe I could be getting my better, positions or whatever if I was a little bit more active somehow. But like I said, for me, it's such a drain, and especially with my addiction to, technology, it's not a healthy place for me. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out a different way too. I think that's another thing, is figuring out the way that works for us as individuals to get us where we want to go. And I'm just going to have to build it through relationships that I can actually, person to person, versus maybe somebody randomly seeing me or building up my certain number of followers or something like that. That's not working for me because I'm also not happy that way.
Right. And also,
so I might get successful, but I'm not going to be happy.
I'm glad you just said that. There is not just one path to get where you're going.
Yeah.
Everybody it's as unique as you are. And you should find, and I'm glad you said it, you should find the path that fully works for you, that feeds you spiritually or mentally, physically, whatever it is that works for you.
Right.
No matter what, people can tell you all kinds of stuff. It doesn't matter. If you don't like that, don't bring it into your life. Just because they tell you should do it that way. Don't do it that way. Do it the way you want to do it, and things will happen the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, they will, and in the right timing too. And I look at some of the opportunities I was offered younger, and I had said on the last show, fear often prevented me from even taking those offers, even though it was what I wanted.
Right.
But I wasn't ready either, and I think I would have killed myself if I had taken some of those opportunities, because I don't think I understood the level of hatred people can have, especially on social media these days.
Yes, I know.
And because I did not have good boundaries and I didn't have good self-care, like I was definitely, oh my God, how can I respond to that? What can I do? Oh, they don't like me. They hate me. Oh my God. And it was this like no peace whatsoever. And so I think that would have definitely destroyed me had I had that opportunity when I was younger. You look at, people like, unfortunately, Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade that then had that level of success, and you think, what was it? What that was so depressing when they had everything that their hearts desired, it seemed. And so I think it's also understanding that just because you get to this place that you think is going to make you happy, that's not the thing that's going to make you happy. It has to be in place, I think, before we get there.
I agree. And I just want to say to you all out there, because I understand this better than anybody else, because I do shows where we give our opinions and shows like this. If you're a host or an interviewer or somebody who does shows, do not read the comments.
Really? So you never read your comments?
Not anymore.
Why is that?
Because they're horrible. No, there are some good comments, but I have found that majority of the comments these days, and I'm not talking about like on social media, but like like the ones that are like on YouTube or on iTunes, a lot of them I don't read anymore because they attack me for my weight, they attack me for my gender, they attack me for my gap teeth, they attack me for...
I love your gap.
I'm not getting rid of it, I love my gap too. Me and Michael Strahan.
Is David Letterman around still?
David Letterman and Madonna, we all have our gaps. Mind the gap. But no, and I've told people all the time, there are people out there who that's their job, is to tear you down because they have anything else to do or makes them feel good or whatever it is. So a lot of times, if you're on something that's semi-successful, you can't really read the comments anymore. I just can't anymore. Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll get like a private message, or I'll get on Twitter people directly say things like, "Oh, you're wonderful." I'll do that. But on YouTube, I had to stop reading the comments because they're just so horrendous, and I had to learn it doesn't feed me if I read these comments. I just get upset. And like you said, mute it out. It doesn't work. Sorry, folks, that's where we live today. You can't read the comments anymore.
And I think so much of our society is geared towards our vanity, and that is, I think, learning to grow without being, vain. And I say myself included because, sometimes I guarantee you everybody has done this where you post something on social media and then for whatever reason, maybe there was Facebook was doing something and it doesn't get a lot of likes or something, and so we delete it. Okay, I am not the only one. I know that I'm not the only one.
Well, okay, for me, unfortunately, I'm very photogenic. No, I know. No, here's the truth for me. I've never dealt with my looks before because I was the funny one. I was the smart one. I was the personality. Wow. So if you attack my personality, I get upset. Looks wise, I'm like, well, I am. I mean, I was never one of those people who I never had a six pack. So I never, being a black man, I was never a part of the mainstream. So I just never. For me, looks were never a thing for me. Interesting. It's my personality.
And I wonder, I think most women, I would say, for us it's looks, because we're so judged on our looks. And that's when the comments for me were so hard, especially when I first became a public figure, and I was much heavier at the time, and the comments were just horrible. And in fact, I was not a nice person. Remember, I said that. So this one man said to me, to my face, I don't think he's watching. It's been a few years now. And he said, "Wow, if you were 20 pounds thinner, I would marry you." And I kicked him right where it counts.
Okay, go on,
I
girl.
did.
Now I want to ask you a question. We are on Black Hollywood Live, so I can ask you this. I also think black women on TV, especially in media, have to really wash their hair.
Come
on, that was we are on Black Hollywood Live.
You are so
I think
right.
so more than women. More black women.
Yeah, definitely. One of my greatest frustrations in being on camera is it doesn't matter what the story I'm doing. It doesn't matter who I'm interviewing. The number one comment is going to be about the hair.
Isn't that crazy?
The hair was out of place. Oh, the hair was this.
From
the hair
was
right.
From black people telling you, like, girl.
She needs to get it. She needs to get in there.
Her edges are good.
Okay, and for me, I'm all natural. Okay, there ain't no beauty shop here. There ain't no nothing. And so it's gonna look natural. Okay, and I thought, that's me though. I am probably coming here after going on a long run, probably going on a hike, and I'm not going to spend all this money and time in the salon at this point in my life. Maybe I need to. Okay, I admit it. Okay.
But I found myself looking at Mrs. Obama when they were in the press. Like, her hair looks good. Okay, it's good. Like, I was like, oh, thank God, her hair looks pressed. It's fine. But it's the thing that black folks, we really look at our hair. We're about
we do, and
hair.
I wish we're starting to embrace more of the natural hair. And but when I first started, I will say, I was, my boss was like, well, we're gonna send you somewhere about your hair.
Dang. Oh my God. I had a little mini fro at one point. People were like, why is he growing mini fro?
You knew what I looked like when you hired me. Well, like, okay, and I'm like, fine, it's your money. What do
what you want? Gets my hair.
Right. And I don't mind being pampered. It's just not the real me right now. I'm trying to get better about it, and my niece, if she's watching this, she'll laugh at me because, man, that girl, I watch her and how much time and effort she puts, and I'm like, that's an investment though in, what is that, the instrument, we as actors call it. And I'm like, I do need to do more. I need to invest more.
I just feel on some level that you guys are unfairly judged.
I think you're right. I absolutely.
Because it comes to black women and their hair. Some black men too, but black women and their hair. They're really looking at this. Okay, that little piece. That's what I'm
No, and do you remember? I don't know if you saw the show Tyra Banks when she took off her wig.
Yes,
and
I did watch that one.
I'm like, go And Oprah's done it.
Yes, well, and also Viola Davis.
I was going to say
famous episode.
on that episode.
Yes.
And and so I think, but I think we still have a ways to go as a society, and like holding black women, like you said, up to a different standard.
I mean, I could talk to you forever. Time has just gone by. What do we want to leave people with? I mean, what would you like to leave people with as we close the show out? What would you like to leave people with?
I would definitely say not to go through everything and avoid. And that's hard because I think one of the things with depression is it makes you feel like you're all alone, and it makes you feel like there's nobody that you can talk to. And it's hard to make steps to get help when you're, that depressed. And so what I would say is just that it goes back to the hand. Look at your hand.
Yeah, I like that.
Nobody else is like you out there in the world. And there is some reason, there's a purpose for each and every one of us on this earth. And it's a journey to find it, and I think making it fun.
Yes, laugh a lot. Yeah. I do. And I just want to end it on a note of that. We hear you, I see you. If you're going through something, please reach out. There's always hope. It may seem hopeless. I've been there. It may seem hopeless. Maybe you can't breathe, whatever, but there is hope. And I'm not going to kid you, it's maybe hard to come out of it, but you can come out of it. And there are ways to do that. And there are people who are professionals, whether it's a life coach or a mental health professional or a pastor.
Because lightning didn't strike me. So,
that's right. Yeah, you go to church, you go in there. Or a good friend or a family member, somebody who can hold you and just be an ear. I just want people out there to really know that we hear you. Yeah. We hear you. This business is hard. It is not for the faint at heart.
No, not at all.
At all. Not at all, but we're in it. We're still here. We're in it. And like I said, we've admitted I've admitted to you that I've had the problems. I've gone to get help, and I feel a little better. And I'm still getting there. I got ways to go, and I'm still getting there. And you do too. I'll make sure I say that.
That's good, James. Yeah, I think that word hope for sure is the thing.
There's always hope.
And there is, and getting around like-minded people is very important.
Yes,
and that's
very
what I
important.
found. Like learning how to put that boundary if somebody is not hopeful and not speaking to you in a way that makes you feel hopeful. Yeah. It's okay to back off a little bit.
That's very true. And no is okay too. No is an okay word. I always say it all the time. Ms. Shay, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope we've been able to help somebody.
Me too. I think we have. I think you gave some great points. I think we have. Tell people in that camera over there where they can find you.
You can find me, like I said, I've gotten off of social media, but I am. If you're on Facebook, we do have the group. It's Host in LA. It's facebook.com/group/Host in LA.
And I am James Lott Jr. You can follow where all James Lott Jr.'s are sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. My latest album is out, of course. It's called Speaking with Strings, and I actually poured my heart and soul into this album, and it's my spoken word set to orchestra and jazz music. You can get it on anywhere you find music, it's there. Do that. And you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube under Black Hollywood Live's Breaking Into. See you next time.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.